I wasn't supposed to notice her like that. Not the way her dress clung to her in the late summer heat, or how she tilted her head when she laughed, the faintest silver glint in her hair catching the porch light. But I did. And once I saw her, really saw her, it was impossible to look away. She lived one door down, the kind of neighbor who kept to herself but always waved politely. Mid-40s, graceful in a way that wasn't polished but lived in. A woman who carried her own weight with dignity, even when her eyes betrayed something softer, something almost lonely. I was 23. Old enough to know better, young enough not to care. That night, it started with nothing, just her asking if I could help carry a box inside. A box too heavy for her wrists, she said, though I suspected she could have managed fine if she wanted to. Her living room smelled faintly of lavender and old paper, the kind of scent that lingers after years of quiet evenings. She poured us both water. We sat close, too close for neighbors, the couch dipping slightly between us. She didn't shift away. Neither did I. Her hand brushed mine when she passed the glass. Just a graze, nothing deliberate. But she didn't pull back fast enough for it to be an accident either. I swallowed. My words came slower than usual. Thanks for the water. Her lips curved, just barely, like she knew what she was doing to me. It's only water, she said, but her voice carried heat, low and steady, like it was meant to stay in my chest long after. The silence stretched, but not the awkward kind. The kind where every second feels like permission. Her dress had slipped slightly off her shoulder, revealing skin pale from a cardigan she'd abandoned earlier. My eyes flicked there, then back to hers. She caught me. Didn't scold me, didn't laugh, just held my gaze longer than necessary. You're quiet tonight, she said. I'm trying not to say the wrong thing. Her eyebrows lifted, faint amusement crossing her face. And what would the wrong thing be? I couldn't answer. My throat tightened. She leaned closer, not touching me yet, but close enough that the edge of her perfume tangled with the warmth of her breath. Her fingers tapped lightly against her glass, then stilled. You know, this isn't smart. Then maybe we shouldn't. Her laugh was low, almost bitter, but not unkind. You're young. You'll think about this later and wonder why it ever mattered. I shook my head. I'm thinking about it now. And it matters. For a moment, she looked at me like I'd said something reckless. Maybe I had. Her eyes softened, then darted away to the window, where the street light cut through the blinds in thin stripes. She traced one with her fingertip along the arm of the couch, stalling, as though the smallest distraction could undo the weight between us. When she turned back, her voice was quieter. I shouldn't be wet for you. The words hung in the air, raw, trembling, too honest to be taken back. My heart slammed once, twice, before I leaned closer, just enough that our knees touched. My voice was a whisper, not mine anymore. Then don't stop. Her breath caught, just slightly, like she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. And right then, before she could answer, before anything could happen, there was a knock at the door. She froze. So did I. The silence was thick, broken only by the sound of her hand setting the glass down too quickly on the table. Her eyes darted to mine. Held. Neither of us moved. The knock at her door faded into silence, and when she finally rose to answer it, there was no one there. Just the echo of our breath filling the room. She didn't sit back down right away. She lingered by the door, her hand on the knob as though she might still escape through it. I stayed on the couch, staring at the untouched water in my glass. My pulse hadn't slowed since her words, raw, reckless words that made it impossible to pretend anymore. When she finally turned back, her voice was softer. You should go. I almost did. But the way her eyes avoided mine, the way her shoulders sagged as though carrying something heavier than the box I'd lifted for her earlier, kept me rooted in place. I don't want to, I said quietly. Her gaze flicked up, sharp at first, then softened. She exhaled, brushing stray hair from her face. You don't understand. People would talk. You'd regret it. And me. Her voice cracked but recovered quickly. I've already lived through enough regrets. The confession hung there, fragile, and for the first time I saw her not as untouchable but as human. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. You think I don't know what loneliness feels like? That made her pause. She tilted her head, watching me as though I'd said something foreign. You're 23. You're supposed to be out chasing, whatever it is young men chase. I smiled faintly, though my chest felt tight. I've chased. It never caught me. Or maybe I never cared enough to catch it. Something flickered in her eyes, recognition maybe, or the memory of a younger self she'd buried. She came back toward the couch slowly, each step careful, deliberate, like approaching a dangerous ledge. When she sat again, closer than before, her hand rested on the cushion between us. She didn't look at me, but her fingers tapped once, twice, then stilled. My marriage ended 8 years ago, she said finally, voice low. We were strangers long before the papers made it official. And since then, it's been easier to keep the distance. To stay in control. I wanted to ask if she was still in control now, with her knee brushing mine, her perfume threading through my head. But I stayed quiet. Her hand shifted, almost absent-minded, until her fingertips grazed my sleeve. A small thing, so light it could be mistaken for nothing. Yet my whole body leaned into it before I could stop myself. She noticed. She froze for half a second, then didn't move away. I turned my head, caught her looking at me, truly looking, with an intensity that made my breath stutter. Her lips parted slightly, as if to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, she let her hand slide just a little higher, resting against my shoulder. Her touch wasn't bold, but it lingered, her thumb brushing once against the fabric as though memorizing the shape of me beneath it. The air thickened. I didn't dare move. And then, instead of retreating, she let her head tilt the slightest bit toward mine. Just enough that when she spoke, her breath ghosted across my cheek. You make it very hard to be sensible. I swallowed, hard, my voice rougher than I intended. Then don't be. For the first time, she didn't laugh, didn't scold, didn't pull away. She just stayed there, her hand steady on my shoulder, the unspoken pulling us closer than either of us was ready to admit. The silence between us grew heavier, as though the walls themselves leaned closer to listen. Her hand still rested on my shoulder, and neither of us moved, both waiting for the other to flinch first. A vibration broke it. Sharp, insistent. Her phone lit up on the coffee table. She snatched it quickly, the glow painting her face in pale blue. Her lips pressed in as she read the screen. I caught only a glimpse. Dinner next week? A name I didn't recognize. She locked the phone without answering. Set it down a little too firmly. I pretended not to notice, but the words hung in the air between us like smoke. You should really go, she whispered, though her hand hadn't left me. Do you want me to? I asked. Her mouth opened, but no answer came. Instead, she leaned back, shoulders tense, as if bracing against something stronger than either of us. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees again, my body angled toward her. The space between us shrank, and with it, my restraint. Her eyes flicked to my lips. Just once. Quick. But enough. You're impossible, she muttered. Or maybe you're just tired of being alone. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Her eyes snapped to mine. For a moment, I thought she'd push me away, cut the moment clean. But she didn't. Instead, she laughed softly, bitter at the edges. You think I don't know what people would say? What they'd think of me? I shook my head. What about what I think? Her hand slid off my shoulder then, slow and reluctant, but she didn't move away. Her thigh brushed against mine. My pulse quickened. You don't understand, she said again, though softer this time, like even she didn't believe it anymore. I leaned in just slightly, close enough to feel the heat of her skin. My words came out low, almost unsteady. Then help me understand. Her breath hitched. The room felt too small, too warm. Every sound, the hum of the refrigerator, the faint creak of the couch, was amplified. She turned her face toward me, just enough that our noses almost touched. Her eyes half closed, lips parting like she wanted to speak but couldn't. I thought it was going to happen. That kiss, the one building in every silence, every glance. But then, a knock rattled the windowpane. A voice called out from outside. "Hey, you home?" We both jerked back too fast, like children caught with their hands in something forbidden. Her neighbor. A man's voice. Friendly, casual. She stood, smoothing her dress, her back to me as she called out. "Yes, just a minute." Her shoulders heaved once, twice, before she turned. Her eyes locked on mine with something fierce, desperate. "Go out the back," she whispered. I rose, moving toward the kitchen door, but not before I stopped, just inches from her. She didn't step away. For a heartbeat, we stood there, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her, her hand brushing mine as though it couldn't help itself. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us needed to. The back door clicked shut behind me, but I didn't leave. I couldn't. My heart hammered too hard, my skin still alive with the ghost of her hand brushing mine. I waited in the shadows of her garden until the neighbor's voice faded, until his footsteps receded down the street. Then, before reason could catch me, I circled back and knocked softly on the kitchen door. It opened almost at once. She stood there, arms crossed, breath unsteady, like she'd been waiting. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, though she didn't close the door. "Neither should you," I said, stepping inside. For a moment neither of us moved. The quiet stretched, thick and heavy. The only light came from the small lamp above the sink, casting everything in a muted glow. Her arms lowered slowly. "Why are you making this harder?" I stepped closer, my voice low, steady despite the storm inside me. "Because I can't stop thinking about you." She shook her head, almost laughing, but her eyes betrayed her. "You're too young to know what you want." I closed the last of the distance between us, my chest nearly brushing hers. "No. I'm young enough not to be afraid of it." Her breath caught. Her hand lifted instinctively, pressing against my chest as though to hold me back. But she didn't push. She just left it there, trembling faintly against the beat of my heart. "I've spent years," she whispered, "building walls. Staying in control. And you—" Her voice broke. She looked up, eyes shining with something raw, unguarded. "You undo me just by being here." I reached up, slowly, carefully, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My knuckles grazed her cheek, softer than a promise. She didn't flinch. She leaned into it, ever so slightly, as though starved for that touch. "You don't have to be in control right now," I murmured. Her lips parted, her breath warm against my skin. The air between us charged, a current pulling tighter with every heartbeat. She stepped closer, her forehead nearly against mine. "If I let this happen, I can't take it back." "Then don't take it back." My words came rough, unsteady. Her hand slid up from my chest to the side of my neck, her thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. My skin burned where she touched. "God," she whispered, eyes closing for just a second. "You don't know what you're doing to me." "I do," I said. My lips hovered a breath away from hers, close enough to feel the tremor in her exhale. The world shrank to that single point, the nearness of her, the scent of lavender and heat, the sound of her unsteady breathing. I tilted forward, just enough that my lips grazed the corner of hers. Not a kiss, not yet, but a promise. And then, the sound of her phone rang out again, shrill, insistent, shattering the silence. She froze, her hand still on my neck, her lips hovering against mine. We didn't move. Didn't breathe. The phone kept ringing. The phone's shrill ring cut through the air until she finally pulled away, her hands slipping from my neck. She didn't answer it, just silenced it with one swipe, her shoulders stiff. I waited for her to speak, but she didn't. She only stared at the dark screen a moment longer before setting it face down on the counter. The quiet between us was louder than the ring had been. I took a step closer. "Who was it?" Her eyes flicked up sharply, like she hadn't expected me to ask. Then she looked away. "It doesn't matter." But the tremor in her hand as she reached for her glass betrayed her. "It matters to you," I said. She swallowed, setting the glass down untouched. "It was my daughter." The words hit me harder than I expected. Not because she had a daughter, I'd guessed as much from the framed photos in her living room, but because of the way she said it, heavy, as though it tied her to the ground. "She's in college," she continued, her voice softer now, almost ashamed. "Your age. Maybe younger." I froze. The room tilted slightly. For the first time, the gulf between us felt wider, heavier. She noticed. She hugged her arms around herself, her dress shifting at her collarbone. "Do you see now? Why this, why us, can happen?" Her words should have pushed me back. But instead, they pulled me forward. I stepped closer, closing the space until the back of her hip brushed the edge of the counter. "I don't care about her age," I said quietly. "I care about you." She flinched at that, her body angled toward me but her eyes fixed stubbornly on the floor. "If she ever found out, if anyone found out," her voice cracked. She pressed her palm to her forehead, and for a second, she seemed smaller, fragile in a way I hadn't seen before. I reached for her wrist, gently pulling her hand away from her face. She didn't resist, though her pulse raced beneath my fingers. "Look at me," I whispered. She did. Slowly, reluctantly. And when her eyes met mine, everything else dissolved, the phone, the risk, the years. All that remained was her, trembling but standing in front of me, her breast shallow, her lips parted as though caught between protest and surrender. I brushed a strand of hair back behind her ear, my fingertips lingering against her cheek. She shivered, not from cold but from something she couldn't hide. "You're shaking," I murmured. "So are you," she breathed. The truth of it hung between us. My hands weren't steady. Neither were hers. And yet neither of us stepped away. Instead, she exhaled sharply, a sound almost like surrender, and whispered, "If we do this, there's no going back." I leaned closer, my voice low against her ear. "Then let's not go back." She closed her eyes, her body leaning into mine, as though her decision had already been made, before the sound of the front door unlocking jolted us apart. The front door clicked open, hinges groaning in protest. We both froze. Her breath caught, her eyes wide, every muscle in her body locked. But then silence. No footsteps. Just the hollow sound of the wind rushing through the hallway. She exhaled shakily, pressing her hand to her chest. "The latch, it's loose," she whispered, almost to herself. "It does that sometimes." We both laughed then, quiet, nervous bursts that ended too quickly, leaving behind something even sharper. Relief bled straight into hunger. And before she could retreat again, I closed the distance. Her back hit the counter softly. My hand braced beside her hip. Our faces hovered close, closer than they'd ever been. "You don't want this," she whispered, though her hands betrayed her, gripping the edge of the counter as though to keep from reaching for me. "I do," I said. My voice was low, raw, almost shaking. "More than I've wanted anything." Her eyes flicked to my lips, then back up. "If we start, I won't be able to stop." I leaned in, just enough that my words brushed her skin. "Then don't." Her breath hitched. Her knuckles whitened against the counter. And finally, she let go. Her hand rose to my face, fingers trembling as they traced my jaw. She pulled me closer until our foreheads touched, until every breath mingled. "I've been alone for so long," she confessed, the words barely audible. "And you make me feel—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I don't even have a word for it." I covered her hand with mine, pressing it tighter against my cheek. "Then don't name it. Just feel it." The silence swelled, thick and unbreakable. My lips grazed hers, just a brush, soft enough to hesitate, hard enough to promise. And in that fragile second, everything broke open. She kissed me. It wasn't neat or careful. It was desperate, trembling, as though she'd held herself back for years and could no longer bear it. I kissed her back with the same hunger, my hand sliding to the small of her back, pulling her closer until there was no space left between us. Her body melted against mine, but her breath was uneven, caught between surrender and fear. When she pulled back just slightly, her forehead still pressed to mine, her voice came out ragged. "This will change everything," she whispered. "Good," I breathed. "Let it." Her laugh came out wet, shaky, almost like a sob. But she didn't move away. She cupped my face with both hands now, her thumbs brushing my skin as though memorizing me. "I was so afraid you'd make me feel young again," she said. "But you don't. You make me feel alive." The words settled deep, truer than anything else in the room. And in that moment, messy, raw, undeniable, we both knew there was no going back. The kiss ended slowly, reluctantly, like neither of us wanted to let go. Her hand stayed against my face, holding me there as though to anchor herself. My forehead rested against hers, and for a long moment, all we did was breathe. Her shoulders trembled. "I can't believe I let that happen." "You didn't let it," I said softly. "We both did." Her eyes closed, and she gave the smallest smile, tired, relieved, like a weight had been lifted and replaced with something she didn't dare name. "I was so sure," she whispered, "that if I let you close, I'd only regret it later." She opened her eyes then, looking straight into mine. "But right now, I don't." I reached for her hand, threading my fingers through hers. She didn't pull away. Her palm was warm, her grip uncertain at first, then firmer, as though she was deciding in real time to hold on. The kitchen felt too small for what had just passed between us. We moved without speaking, settling onto the couch where the night had first started. She tucked one leg beneath her, her body angled toward mine. I stayed close, so close our knees pressed together. She studied me quietly, her thumb brushing across my knuckles in absent circles. "You scare me," she admitted. I tilted my head. "Why?" "Because you see me. Not just the age, not just the walls I've built. You look at me like none of that matters." Her voice grew quieter. "And I want to believe you." I squeezed her hand. "Then believe me." The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was easy, full, like we'd stepped across some invisible threshold. Her head tilted against my shoulder, her hair brushing my jaw. I kissed the top of her forehead, soft, lingering, a promise more than a gesture. For the first time that night, she let her whole weight lean into me. No hesitation, no retreat. Just trust. We stayed like that, wrapped in the hum of the refrigerator, the faint night sounds outside, the warmth of each other filling the quiet spaces. She sighed, her voice almost drowsy now. "So what happens next?" I smiled, resting my cheek against her hair. "Whatever we want." Her laugh was quiet, small, but real. She turned her face up toward me, her eyes softer than I'd ever seen them. "Then stay." And I did. We didn't need more words. Just the press of her hand in mine, the warmth of her body curled close, and the unspoken understanding that we had both crossed into something we couldn't, and didn't want to, undo. Messy. Flawed. Human. Ours.